Good morning and welcome to OSW Daily. OSW Daily, where we review current topics and discuss them with leading experts to get their views, opinions, and insights. Today we're going to focus on co-working space, and who better to have on than Mark Gilbreath. Mark is the CEO of Liquid Space. So there's a lot of content out there today that's all around co-working, partnering with hotels. What is the future of co-working? How is COVID affecting co-working, and what are the positives that the co-working industry is seeing? And as I mentioned, who better to have on to discuss than Mark Gilbreath. So Mark, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for coming back. We had you on a few weeks ago, so I'm glad we didn't scare you off.
Not at all, Steve. Good morning. Good to see you.
Good morning, and I have to appreciate it. It is very early where you are, so I appreciate you getting up and spending the time with us. So how have you been since we last spoke?
Quite well. I mean, it's anytime, any day, Steve. The sun never sets on work from anywhere.
That's true. See, it's almost like you had that little slogan just lined up there, man. I love it. I
Well,
love it.
I didn't. It actually came to me 30 seconds
There
ago
you
as we were doing the
go.
warm up. So
There
yeah,
you
there you
go.
go.
There you go. Here live, oh folks, we heard it. We heard it here first, you know. So look, let's just quickly get into this, Mark, because there's so much stuff that we want to get through, and I think it's just so many jumping off points for you and I to really get going on this. And hotels as offices trend is exploding. I mean, that's a pretty profound statement. Are you seeing that? Is that what you're experiencing?
We're certainly seeing. I mean, there's an explosion of headlines and experimentation. I think it would be overstating it to say that there's an explosion of validation around it.
Right.
So, and I think that the the relative explosion of activity and headlines, it's probably look, it's a new topic, and so it's conspicuous. It jumps out of the headlines for us.
Right.
But there are enough interesting players of all sizes, from small boutique hotels to mid-sized chains to some of the largest brands, that are actively experimenting, that something's happening there. So why is it valid? Is it relevant? I think it's intriguing. I mean, first off, we do need to appreciate the hotels are in. They have urgency. Like, the persistent low levels of utilization in hotels are crushing. I mean, they're well below their profitability levels. So they've got assets. They're idle. That inventory is perishing. These are operators that are highly focused in understanding of maximizing rent per available room, right? So they think about economic occupancy, and they're looking for any port in a storm.
Right.
And one port that looks tantalizing, they haven't docked in it yet, but one port that looks tantalizing is, hey, could my bedrooms, my hundreds of thousands of bedrooms with their private bathrooms, with their good to great Wi-Fi, with the window and the task chair and the desk, and the suburban and tertiary market location where customers can drive up and walk up a staircase to get to the room and not take a lift to the 50th floor. Does that fit a need?
Right. And I was looking before we got on, Mark, and I just a quick Google search on how many hotels are there globally. There's 700,000. So we consider 700,000 hotels to, let's call it 20,000 co-working locations, give or take a thousand or two either way. I mean, for me, that provides a huge opportunity for enterprises to provide a service to employees in their local neighborhood.
Absolutely agree. There's hyperscale in that asset class that is largely idle right now. It is well distributed. If you look at the pins on the map of hotel locations and cross that with the pins on the map of co-working and serviced office and landlords, it's far more diverse. It's far more reflective of the conversation today, which is
Right.
people are working from anywhere, not so much from the CBD. And so yes, at a first order level, locations, coverage, scale, all warrant a serious consideration by individuals and companies that are trying to solve for the dislocation of employees that's happening right now.
Yeah.
It is ready inventory. Will it be relevant inventory when things settle in whatever the new normality looks like? And will the economics of it be something that hoteliers want to hold on to on the other side? Those are some of the larger questions that I think will take a little
Yeah.
while to sort out.
Yeah, and I do want to come back to economics. But one thing I did want to call out, because the article did go into great lengths to explain Industrious being partnering with many hotel chains. Proper Hospitality is mentioned, Avalon, and also mentioned of partnerships with MGM, the Mandarin, and Dutch hotels for the work from hotel concept. So, I mean, you would all naturally think that hotels are set up and have this inventory, this booking system all in place, but is are they going to the third parties like Industrious because they have the software, the expertise? What do you think is the real reason for those synergies?
I think it's for insights into a new use context that's entirely foreign to them.
Mm,
They're not going to Industrious for technology. That's not a source of a booking experience.
hmm
I think what an Industrious could offer to a little bit of peace of mind, a companion on a journey into a new context, somebody that Industrious does deeply understand that flexible office user, their needs, their pains. They also understand the hospitality motions,
mm,
the hospitality playbook of a day in the life of a coworker. That I think is invaluable. They've also got a client base, Industrious does, that might be, a channel that they could redirect at a relationship like Proper.
hmm
But I say, with all due respect to Industrious, which is, I think, well postured to weather the current storm, I don't think that there's a great deal of hospitality education that the co-working world can infuse into the hotel world. I think the better of the hotel brands are damned good at that.
mm.
And if you think about the use case of, employee coming to use a hotel bedroom as a private workspace for a day with the ability to afford themselves of the other amenities in the property, whether it's the gym or the lounge area to grab a lunch or the pool to hop into to refresh before you drive home to the screaming kids, like whatever the playbook is, like that's the hotel playbook.
Right, right, right. No, no. I think the amenities in the bathroom, I think, are the great plays. Now, I was curious about the cost, the economics, as you mentioned, and the article actually did go on and did say about discuss San Francisco rates for the hotel chains on what they charge per day, and it ranged from 134 to 399 per day. Now, 399 seems really expensive, but again, I don't know whether that's for the presidential suite or whatever that is. And obviously, if you're having a high-end CEO meeting, perhaps then there's a need for that. Now, we compare that to what the hotel chains were getting for per night back last year, and it was ranged from 177 to 450. So it is a decrease, but it's not as much of a decrease as what I personally thought. 134, if I think about what that would mean from a room, comparing that to what a traditional co-working private office would be, that seems, I don't know what it is in San Francisco, perhaps you know yourself, but it seems on the higher end to me. I don't know whether you would sort of agree to that.
Yeah, so breaking those numbers down a little bit because they are helpful. You see that the hotel is going to market with a model of about a 20% discount,
Yeah,
right? For the work context, for the workplace use case.
yeah.
And I think that's a peek into or a glimpse into the tension that's going to play here. That is a higher rate, even at that discount level. That's a higher rate than workplace alternatives. Now, mind you, that hotel room's got its private bathroom, it's got its lounge, it might have a gym, it's got a pool, it's got amenities that most co-working spaces or Regus locations simply don't offer. So it is a premium workplace. Of that, there is no doubt. What's the alternate comp if I just go sort of traditional co-working? Well, I can probably get a day pass and sit in an open area in a co-working space in San Francisco for $30 to $50. Right now with a click on Liquid Space.
hmm
A private office for a day. A one-person, 100-square-foot office without a bathroom, without a pool, without a lounge, without a gym, without room service, probably of or maybe slightly better Wi-Fi. In San Francisco, $150.
So it is pretty comparable then.
It's comparable at the low end, and I guess
Yeah,
the question that will remain will be that $134 rate.
right,
How long would they want to sustain that?
right.
Like, is that a durable and long-term rate structure that can fly? You got to remember the 177 to 450 range. Looking at data for pre-COVID for hotels, we all know that that's a distribution curve that
hmm
that rewards. You can't. They don't sell the hotel at all. They don't sell the whole hotel at 177, right? That's
right,
the early or the late bookers.
right.
So their blended cost probably needs to be something closer to the 250 to 300 range overall, and that would be super premium as workplace.
Yeah, and sorry, you're going to. I don't want to interrupt you. Sorry.
No.
Okay, so I was just thinking through, and from someone who procures real estate, right, and someone who's looking after their employees. What is the emotional attachment to using a co-working space where you're going to a provider who then has a relationship with the landlord, and they have to manage the protocols and communicate that to you for your employees on how you're going to manage spaces. We go through this environment we're currently in today. Do I feel more comfortable dealing directly with a hotelier who is living this every day, who practices, who is personally responsible for everyone going in, and I can have that relationship directly? I says that's an interesting offset and an interesting way to sort of think about things as well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we haven't touched on the health and safety dimension yet, but that's an enormous one. Steve, you and I have talked about this in the past. I mean, one of the points of friction that many CRE leaders workplace leaders are feeling, because they know that their employees are feeling it, is, all right, to what entity do I feel comfortable allowing or even encouraging my employees to return?
Right.
You and your risk team need to feel comfortable with the health and safety protocols, at least for the time being, for the next 6 to 12 months. And hotel operators have been running at larger scale than any of the co-working operators, bar none, for decades, dealing with bodies in spaces and cleaning at scale. They've been doing that, for decades. Now they've had to learn the COVID playbook themselves, but I think there's deep institutional knowledge and deep sort of process sophistication in those operators that warrant consideration. I would expect them to be on par or better, certainly on par, just given the scale of their operations.
And do you think it's a long-term play?
To me, that comes back to economics.
Yeah.
I think in the short term, they can bring supply to scale. They've got perishing inventory. We Liquid Space are excited about that segment. We think it's relevant. We've talked to enterprises who say that it's relevant. So I think the combination of available inventory that can be appropriately priced and rapidly deployed will make it a portion of the place response to work from anywhere for the next 12 months. What's less clear to me is whether it becomes an enduring part. And for it to be an enduring part, I think it would then hotels would need to go into a purposeful design approach for this, right? And whether that's refitting or resizing spaces, but I think they'll look to optimize the economics to make it work. So that'll be maybe the next, 12 months from now, it'll be interesting. Are hotels developing 30% of a site to be workplace as part of their intentional design plan to squeeze out that 30 to 50% of economic efficiencies that I know that they're going to want? That would probably, there's a prediction.
Yeah. No, and I love it. You and I always talk about competition in many different ways, and I think competition elevates the product. And I think the more that we get in, then the better the product becomes. And then from an economics perspective, then the more price is built into that. So I do really love that. All right, go ahead. Just
one other comment, I think, on a synergy that does exist for the hotel operators. Like the client that they're missing right now is the business traveler. And she and he will come back, perhaps never to the scale that was seen before, but they've got that established client base. Right. They've got those relationships with the travel departments and with the Steve Todd, the traveler that has his Bonvoy membership, and he's a committed loyalty member to Marriott or to Hilton or whomever. So they're already serving that business traveler, and I think that they can play upon that goodwill and that brand trust. It does mean something. So it's a ready base of customers to reactivate if they want to step into another need that Steve has, which is replacement.
And on that as well, right? So a lot of these hotel chains have a relationship with corporations already for preferred rates as for hotel, for evenings and hotel booking, traditional hotel bookings, and is there a way they can leverage that also? So there's something else that just popped into my head based on what you just said. So awesome, man, that was cool. So moving on to, will co-working studios survive COVID-19? And there's a survey, March 2020, 14,000 co-workspaces. Around 72% have witnessed a significant drop in the number of people using their space, and 41% have seen memberships decrease. Now, I haven't gone through the study. I don't know at what's the 2 point of references, but does that decrease surprise you, or is it worrying, or what's your views on whenever you see those statistics?
Doesn't worry me at all, because we've got clear line of sight to the pattern that's emerging for beyond this current crush. It's absolutely crushing. It doesn't surprise me either. I think it is real data. I think it's as severe as that or worse for many operators. And it's crushing. Like it's gonna destroy some operators. It's hard for the entire industry, and it's an interesting. It's not irony, but it's an interesting kind of tension. Like the reality is the flexible office economy is highly compressed right now, and the irony and the tragedy of that is it is unequivocally going to be a part of the even more valued response to return to work in months or quarters. And so, this is more of an emotional rally cry to our industry. Like, hang on, folks. We need you on the other side. Be tolerant, landlords. These operators are going to be viable. Don't judge them on their P&L for Q3. Judge them on the relevance of what they're going to mean to the market and your building. In another 6 months. Don't kick them out right now.
Yeah. So. And the other statistic that was in there that I actually found quite surprising was it expected the market to contract 12.9% in 2020. That number to me was lower than I expected. I did expect additional.
I would expect it to be higher than that as well.
Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. And obviously with this increased competition that we've talked about, that people no one ever seen coming from the hotel chains and so on and so forth. It actually, I'm surprised it's that low, and perhaps that has yet to play into it. But yeah, and also whenever we think about the remote working, we know is a much higher level. I think more people want access to space closer to home, and I hear it regularly, be it from peers and other folks that I talk to in the industry. And I think there is opportunities there, but people just are not ready to take that step just now. So.
Yeah, because they're not. Many employers haven't yet encouraged their employees to leave the house, and many employees at an individual level are still unsure about that. And so, add hotels to co-working as this ready and available supply response when people do step forth. So the experiments that an Industrious runs or others might be running, I think. There is early signal that can be gained, but the tide coming back in, it's not flowing back in aggressively yet. Like the conditions aren't ripe for that yet. The early window on corporations starting to say, all right, it's time, is still end of the year, January, and there are a great many companies that have actually formally said next summer, right? So mid-flow tide, the Thames flowing back up to London, like mid-flow tide's probably going to be end of Q1. It'll reverse directions in January. Like it'll start to flow back into new place. But it's what's happening right now are acute needs. Like people with acute needs are solving for those problems.
Right.
Companies with acute project space or local hub or satellite needs are solving for those. But the tide hasn't flowed back in yet.
Yeah, no, and it's a great segue into our next piece of content I want to talk about, because it's how COVID-19 proves a great opportunity, right? And that's what we were coming to. And I want to take some quotes from Colm Wang Long, co-founder and chief commercial officer at Justco, which is a co-working location based in Singapore. Isolated workers lack the emotional support provided by person-to-person interactions that occur in the office. Lethargy and angst are setting in for many, with the latter being a particular concern given the global economic decline. So I think what we're saying is, there is a desire for this. we may not be seeing it just here, but I think perhaps in Singapore, what they're witnessing and what they're seeing actually is there is a desire and actually there's a need, and people are actually starting now to engage. So there is upside, there is opportunity, and there is, if we want a shining light for this market segment.
Absolutely. People's human needs have not been well served over the last incredibly stressful 9 months.
Yeah,
There's no doubt about that.
yeah,
They're human needs. I'm not convinced, and in our hundreds of conversations with workplace leaders, I think I see acknowledgement that that solving those human needs of employees as part of their total well-being.
mm-hmm.
Remember, like there's work and there's life. The total well-being of the employee has both those spheres. Until 9 months ago, we didn't give a whole lot of consideration to the life side of things. We built office palaces to serve the work need. Those palaces are closed. The employees are at home. The employees are living with the totality of life now. In the total equation of their life and their well-being, their human needs are not being well met because they're isolated. We are all living through PTSD right now. I'm not convinced that the work environment is the only place or even the best place for them to rebalance with their needs for personalization and human interaction. It's a place where we socialize, and some work needs social interaction, collaboration, and project work for sure, right? But I think it's a leap too far to say that the reason why people will come back to work is because of their social needs. I think that overstates the reality. I think people will come back to workplaces with others when they have to collaborate. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. They'll come back. A great many, a meaningful amount will come back to workplace and enjoy some of the socialization as part of their overall well-being. But a meaningful number will also have found that they can work from anywhere, and the solitary work that they do, the environment might be better when they can choose it, and they may choose something other than a traditional office, and they may solve for their human needs through other interactions in local community and not look for that out of their work experience.
Yeah, in many of the conversations I've had with my peers, it is a case of social is the reason why people want to go back to the office, why they want to re-engage in the workspace. However, most perceive the productivity for their heads down focus work is done best at home, with an understanding that there are some, obviously the home environment doesn't allow that, so therefore there is alternative spaces that are been looking for. And the next piece of content that sort of I'm going to put up in a second states that only 11% of employees actually say that their workspace is designed optimally for them to be productive. So because it's part of it is understandable because that workspace is there for, be it 3, 4, 500, 5,000 people, whatever it is, for everybody to be there. Where whenever we have the flexibility to choose the location that we want to work in, then we will select the right place for us to do a specific activity. One of the benefits, I think, of a program that does provide that flexibility is if you know you need to do this head down work, then you can select a location that actually provides you with that environment that allows you to do that. But then if you want to be in a social, interact with other people and do that, then there's alternatives for that as well.
Like we've long proselytized about the benevolent tyranny of the commons, like the benevolent tyranny of Steve Todd, the global workplace leader who, built environments that he sincerely believed that were good, that are great environments.
Yeah.
But they're normalized to the commons, and they overlook they're well-intentioned, and they're great environments, but they overlook the reality that every human is unique and every human's environments are unique. And look, I think the dust has settled on this great experiment of the last 6 months, and productivity stayed healthy. Commitment of employees to do work was unscathed. Company cultures have continued. They're different. Be ignorant to assume that company cultures aren't affected by how we're recalibrating and redistributing. But they're still, NASDAQ still has a company culture, a vibrant one.
Right.
And the conclusion we draw is work from anywhere won the day. And we think work from anywhere is going to win the decade. And choice, as you were arguing for or hypothesizing, we think choice to employees to solve for workplace a portion of the time, maybe not all of the days of their work month, is going to be forevermore with us, and we'll be better off for it.
And you mentioned culture, and
Yeah.
one of the big inhibitors or fears, if you want, of accessing these networks, allowing employees to go and work from anywhere, is the fact that they're not coming to an office, they're not congregating with other employees within that company, and therefore there's fear the culture gets diluted. How would you respond to that?
I, I think it's an important and sincere topic, and I don't want to be dismissive
Mm-hmm.
of some of the people that are voicing that concern. Like, the CEOs and the chief people officers, managers, they need to be, they should be worried about that.
Right.
They should carry the tension on that, because they are, the CEO is accountable for the culture of a company. But to many of the people that are making that argument, I'm a little more dismissive. When I hear the broker make that argument, or the building owner make that argument, or the architect make that argument, I can't help but think a little bit that they're arguing for the perpetuation of their pocketbook. Like, they need that to be true.
Mm.
They have an unavoidable economic bias to want to believe. So it rings a little hollow when I hear it from some roles.
Mm.
So the CEO should be terrified about it and should be hyper attentive. But look, dude, you and I don't work for the same company, but we're interacting. We're like,
Right.
we're building, we're deepening. Every time you and I chat, we're deepening our relationship.
Yeah.
That's culture, man. And
Yeah.
and technology and the extraordinary ways that we can touch and interact and share and get naked, metaphorically, like that builds relationship and community and trust and bond, and that is culture.
Right.
So what the CEO should be worried about is that interaction falls away, and it's not. Now, 6 hours of Zoom calls or 8 hours of Zoom calls a day may not be a sustainable type of interaction, but it sure is intimate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same as having a beer at the pub after work, but it's intimate. It is more intense in some ways, and so I think we're early into solving for the healthiest and the best way to have the level of interactions that we want. But I don't think we're suffering for communications at the present time. And culture is born of rich communications and interactions and sharing and trust and exposure. So I think culture's not dying. It's just gonna adapt. The way it's cultivated is adapting.
Yeah.
That's part of the experiment that we've seen play out. And it's a new stressor comes into the system, and the organization adapts around it.
No, it's a great way to sort of finish it up, because I think that's really important. I'm glad you made the distinction, because it is important to understand and accept those. And I think, it's one of the things that I've always had to be reminded of. Who, it's the question behind the question, it's the story of who's saying what's the objective, and it is important that we do understand that that culture is innately important for the organization, those within the organization, and yeah, it's a great way to think about it. Yeah.
Indeed.
All right, Mark, look, it's been a great conversation as always. I appreciate your time. Thank you for making time for OSW today. Folks, if this is your first time coming along, do please subscribe to the channel. Do reach out to Mark. Do go have a look at liquidspace.com, where you can find all your co-working locations, and all your needs can be there. Yeah, Mark, you're the guy. Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Cheers, mate. Stay well.
Cheers, you too, mate. Thank you.